Today, I'm talking to Lexi Corretti, Sierra Sotheby's International Realty's top producer since 2012, with over 15 years in the real estate business in Lake Tahoe. With a Master's of Science degree, she worked in land planning and permitting, as well as web marketing, as well as she completed several residential construction projects with her husband, a licensed Nevada general contractor. This experience is what led her to her success in her career as a real estate agent today. She is too modest to share, but she is the agent who represented Sierra Sotheby's highest sales price for 2019. The Sierra Sotheby's top Nevada associate with the company since its inception in 2012. The top Incline Village and Estate Shore agent with over 18 lakefront sales. Real Trends ranked number 5 in Nevada and number 1 in Incline Village. The Estate Nevada agent for Sotheby's Market Leaders Group, or a group of 40 agents. These 40 agents exceed $4 billion in sales annually. That's more than most top brokerages with hundreds of agents in major cities. She is on the exclusive Lake Tahoe Board of Regents for Who's Who in luxury real estate. And last but not least, she recently broke another sales record with a $38 million sale in Lake Tahoe. In talking to Lexi, it's clear, while she leads with humility and modesty, it does not keep her from success. And in many ways, it is exactly what makes her great and how she makes record-breaking sales. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today we have one of the top agents in the country with record-breaking sales from Lake Tahoe in Nevada, Lexi Corretti. Thank you for being on the show. With Sotheby's International Realty, by the way.
Yes, Jere, great to see you. Thanks for having me here.
Good to see you. It's been way too long, by the way.
Yeah, so I think we've all.
Maybe we'll see each other in person again one day.
One day, yeah.
So Lexi, let's start off and tell everybody, I think you've just closed, is it a $38 million?
I did. Yeah, it was a record sale for the Nevada side of Lake Tahoe, a record lakefront sale. And believe it or not, I've had it on the market for 4 years. We had it in contract one time before, but timing was finally right, and the buyer came through this time. So we just closed it in August.
Wow. And you've been an agent. So give us a little picture of your business, what it looks like, where you are today, and then let's talk about how you got into the business in the first place.
Sure. Yeah, I have been in the business almost 20 years up here at Lake Tahoe right now. And this is as strong a market as I've ever seen it. We have had a lot of people coming up from the Bay Area and other places in the country that can work remotely, school, do online schooling. And we've just had such huge demand. Our inventory is pretty depleted right now. That's the main problem we're having.
Wow. And it's limited. So we're November 2020. So everybody's figuring out since COVID or the quarantining and social distancing that they prefer and want to be in these second home markets like Lake Tahoe. And in your market, tell us a little bit about, you talk a lot about Incline Village and Lake Tahoe, and there's a limited amount of inventory as it is. Right. And kind of give us a picture of what that looks like.
Sure. Lake Tahoe itself is geographically is about 22. The lake itself is 22 miles long by about 12 miles wide. So the area around the lake is actually about 72 miles. We're a very small geographic area, but there's some big differentiation between the California side of the lake and the Nevada side of the lake. A lot of the ski areas and resorts are in Truckee and Squaw Valley, Tahoe City, really popular with families and people coming up from the Bay Area, a lot of younger generation too. So there's been high demand for for families and kind of even first-time homeowners coming into the California market. The Nevada market is characterized by a lot of higher or upper echelon buyers that are coming specifically for tax reasons, in addition to the lifestyle and kind of, having a portfolio that many have a portfolio of other homes. But we're defined in Incline Village as a 3-mile stretch of shoreline with mixed sandy beach, boulders, and, 1 to about 5 acre parcels on the lake. 5 acres there are very few large ones like that.
Wow.
A very limited market.
Exactly. And for those of you who haven't been to Lake Tahoe, I mean, the water is beautiful. It's clear. It's not like when we're in Atlanta, just kidding for those of you from Atlanta, but it's really beautiful. And you've got 1 to 5 acre lots. So there's a limited number of properties, and now you've got COVID. And so you've got this luxury market that usually probably is a little bit slow that's picking up right now.
And we're really, we're just a few hours from San Francisco and a direct flight for most of the West Coast hubs. We're a 4-season lifestyle too. So people come up here in the summer to enjoy all of the sunshine and boating, and sometimes, get out of the fog or the marine layer. Sometimes you get on the California coast, and then winter is our other big season with all of the skiing. So it's that lifestyle I think that people want.
And the sales prices range in Lake Tahoe. I mean, we know it's up to 38 million, but where does that start?
We're right now in Incline Village. I think there are 8 single family properties that are priced under $1 million. And that's pretty limited right now. We do have a larger supply of condos. The Incline Village was developed in the 70s and 80s. And a lot of the properties are older fixer-uppers, and buyers seem more willing to take on projects now just to get into the market at a lower price. But our average price, I think, between the $2 to $5 million market is the busiest right now.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about your breaking records. You were incredibly diligent. I just happen to know that about you. And you've been doing this for 20 years. How did you get in the business? Why? And what did it look like in the beginning?
Yeah, well, and I should, as a caveat, so in 2004 is actually when I started working at another brokerage up here. So 16 years, I'd say. And prior to that, I was in land planning and working kind of in similar fields. So I used to like to say this is actually like my 3rd career, but it's my longest for sure. And I was, I've really become to specialize in helping with complex issues and understanding regulatory bodies and specific site, limitations and details that are really important to getting these lakefront sales done. I think I was giving an example before we started recording. To build a pier now in Lake Tahoe, we had a moratorium for several years. They lifted that, and they now have gone to a lottery system where they will allow just 5 lakefront pier applications, 5 applications around the entire lake, and basically limited to either a joint pier or a shared pier among 2 to 3 neighbors. So to buy an old lakefront property, I just sold a very nice home for $16.9 million. A beautiful 1 acre with a beach, with a private pier and a guest house. And I was one of 8 other agents bringing buyers to the table within a 2-day period. And my buyer got it for full price, which I think it could have sold for a lot more. And get this, it was a tear down. So at 16.9 million, you're looking at a beautiful lakefront rebuild on the north side of Lake Tahoe.
So and these buyers, I'm assuming, or tell us, where do these buyers come from? I mean, you're talking about to buy these kind of properties, most of them have to be billionaires, I would assume.
Yeah, I would assume it's very private up here, and most of our purchases are, within LLCs, and I deal with attorneys. So confidentiality is an important part. And a lot of reason buyers like that want to come up here is because nobody really cares who they are, and they're in a community with other people that are just up here for the love of the place, and we don't really care who's who. But that said, yeah, we do have a lot of upper echelon buyers and up, coming up here. A lot of that on the Nevada side is for tax reasons. And a lot of people that are, because we have no corporate tax, no inheritance tax, no personal income tax.
Yeah.
If buyers are able to take advantage of that, especially if they have an event where they're selling a corporation or they're retiring and spending maybe 6 months of the year here, we're seeing a lot of that's really feasible for a lot of people. And they may have another home in New York or California, Hawaii, Scottsdale, but Nevada ends up being their primary home.
So tell us a little bit about you for all of us real estate agents who want to understand how, because you've become incredibly successful and good at what you do. So you're this is your third career. You were in land planning. I'm assuming that was that for Lake Tahoe, or that
was way back. I grew up in New England, actually. So
okay.
I had a Bachelor of Arts and then a master's degree in environmental science. So I was kind of a techie person. I did geographic information systems and did a master's project on a phosphorus loading model for a lake watershed in Maine, where I lived and worked in Portland for I lived there for about 10 years, and worked 5 years for a landscape architect, and then ended up joining in with a startup web design company back in the late 90s and segued into
was
marketing.
That in Portland, or what was that?
Yeah, in Portland, Maine.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah, that kind of the marketing component and the land planning background and just kind of that environmental understanding, site planning and all of that, I felt was a good segue into real estate. So I moved out to Lake Tahoe when I was 30 years old and just thought real estate would be this was a great market to do it. So I have been fortunate to have been in the right place at the right time, where blogging was a brand new thing. And that was really how I got my feet wet and was able to differentiate myself from some of the other agents in Lake Tahoe. And I was able to make a great connection with the tech community in the Bay Area.
Doing it when it wasn't a thing the way it is now, I don't think.
Right.
So basically you came into a new market, you had the experience living in Portland, Maine, working in land planning and development, and obviously you're very well versed in understanding land and the environment. So you go from there, you come to Lake Tahoe. Now, what brought you to Lake Tahoe?
My husband grew up here. So he grew up in Incline Village, and he's a general contractor and builds homes. So that's another piece of the puzzle that's really, I've learned a lot from doing our own remodels and our own projects.
Wow. That
it's just kind of all come together, as a singular focus into helping buyers understand more of the finer nuances of buying. Lakefront properties are obviously the trickiest ones up here and the most coveted. So it's just allowed me to focus on using my skills to coordinate with, bringing different subs in and inspectors and going through kind of the government agencies and the red tape that you just have to kind of go through to figure out exactly what you've got with an asset, like a lakefront property for sale.
You've had an incredible, there's this perception that you've just got to know the right people. Clearly you were married to the right guy because he put you in a great market, but you kind of knew a lot coming into it.
And for me, it was really the opposite. I was very unconnected coming up here, disconnected.
Yeah.
And my husband will probably describe himself as a glorified ski bum for his later years, and does construction, to pay the bills. So not that he didn't have kind of social connections up here, but it's very interesting because most of my clients are really out of area. My buyers mostly come from the Bay Area, New York, other luxury markets, and also great referrals from Sotheby's, from other Sotheby's agents I've worked closely with. And a lot of the sellers, I've had worked for sellers that I've actually never even met in person. This might be their second or third home that they're selling, and they've entrusted me, given me the keys, and told me to sell it. So it's a very interesting market where there are not a lot of clients that I work with locally. They're all over the place.
So what do you think is giving you your competitive edge as a real estate agent over what have you done? What's the difference that you've become so successful? Because most people, like, I think it's about 95% don't make it past year 2.
Yeah, and keep in mind, so I'm 16 years into this, and I'd say in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had my strongest success. Really, I think the first 14 years or the first 10 years or so, I've been gaining a lot of knowledge and building my skills, and every transaction is different, as you know.
Yeah.
So it's really having that knowledge and being able to, talk to bring properties to buyers that aren't on the market yet, kind of have an understanding of what's out there, what value is. And then in the last several years, Sotheby's has really helped connect me with the right buyers and the right opportunities to share my knowledge with and to bring them successfully through escrows. So I would just say I'm really not the most refined agent, and I don't do a lot of socializing and what's very important in a lot of markets. I would describe myself as much more introverted, but I work very well just one-on-one and I'm very hands-on in the process working with buyers. And I take the same approach with listings too, just leveraging our fantastic marketing and using all of our data and insight, into the specific features of the homes to sell the properties.
So observation, something interesting, I find the more successful real estate agents have a reputation for having big egos and being arrogant, or not always, but we all know that's a little bit of the stereotype. You just said something I think is interesting, and I'd love to get your take on this. And then there's another answer I'm going to share with everybody to a question to get you to elaborate on. But you said, I'm introverted. An interesting comment, and it was actually Bill Fandel, one of our friends, said this one day. He said, especially in your market, you're representing a lot of people. I mean, you're selling properties for 20, 16 million, and they still need to be basically redone, 38 million. I mean, big numbers, a lot of billionaires. But at the end of the day, billionaires don't need friends. They're not looking for friends. Well, we could argue that, but in this situation, they don't need people coming after them to be their friends. They need somebody they can trust and who can hear them and who wants to get the job done.
Yeah.
That might be.
That's how I work in a nutshell. Honestly, discretion is very important. And I think I just take the task to heart. So I really want to find the right property and make sure we do all of our diligence and, going through every aspect.
And there's so much to be said for that. Kevin Brown, who, Kevin, he's partners with Nikki Field. He was on the show. He was great. But one thing he said, he goes, when you ask people their secret sauce, they just don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. Usually whatever it is, for example, when I listen to you, and I think this is important, I wish we were live so our listeners could chat with us about it. But I think your strength is, and I think it's an important lesson to learn, is that for you is very serious. You take this to heart. It's personal, and you respect that more than most people. I think more than most people I know. And your diligence and accountability. We know one another through a mastermind group with Sotheby's, of the top agents in the country, and you have the level of accountability of very few people. Just for the record.
Well, I think. And I've learned that too from leaders in our networking groups at Sotheby's, our market leaders group, and you mentioned masterminds. I think it's the biggest thing I've learned is gaining knowledge from other agents and other markets and really understanding how this works in the upper echelon of sales. So I've really learned a lot from veteran agents over the years. And I mean, I just go with my gut as far as, just focusing on my client and doing what's best for them. And everyone I think should do that. But I've had a good experience in our market where I think I work with a lot of genuinely good agents. And a lot of the agents have been selling up here for maybe 30, 40 years. Wow. So it's a very tight knit market. And I think that leads to authenticity and being genuine and having very good relationships with our local agents, but also having this access that some of the local agents don't to great market leaders like you, that does give me an edge, and that helps connect me with the outside world and clients, and instill a level of trust. So that's been my edge.
And you shared with us that, I think this is really important to share because it's so clear talking to you how you really take this business. Like it's so personal. And I think that just says so much about your success. That comes before your success, which in result is your success. We were talking earlier before we were recording, and we were talking about, I said, what is it about you, like, that you're so successful? You said, I think I'm just willing to do things that other agents don't do, and maybe they really shouldn't even do, but at the end of the day, that's what I'm willing to do. Do you have some examples of that, or elaborate on that for us?
I have one that I can laugh about now, but boy, when I was in the trenches, it was a tough one. So I did sell that high-end lakefront property in August, but we were in contract on and off since April, and had to work with a difficult set of circumstances as far as we getting a lot of snow melt in the spring. We have a high water table at a lot of our lakefront properties. So this one wasn't much different than another property where you've got a sump pump type system and vapor barrier and things like that. But it just so happened to be 17,000 square foot home, and the sump pump system wasn't working correctly. And the buyer, after getting into contract, revealed that he'd had a severe mold allergy that happened in his prior home because of a similar high water issue. So we went through lots of air quality testing and all sorts of things, but I think I spent 3 weeks in the basement of the home with contractors mapping out some pump systems and making sure that things were being installed.
And let's elaborate on this mold issue, because I think a lot of people, you kind of snub it, but this was a situation where he had actually been misdiagnosed for having cancer when he actually had a mold allergy. Like, this was not some people are making this stuff up situation.
This is a real life story and a real life concern. So, we had his best interest at heart too. He had a tie to the original owners of this property going way back to childhood, actually. Wow. And since then, the property had sold and been rebuilt by the current owners. But it was just such it was a very neat story to have someone with that history and connection to the property. And we felt it was, the right place for him, and that it was maybe kind of destiny. But here was this big obstacle in the way and some serious issues we really had to address before we could get through it. And you brought up another pretty important point. In Tahoe, there's, we have radon. It is another naturally occurring gas that we need, special inspections for, and the systems are pretty easy to manage. But issues with the lake level and how private ownership actually goes to low water on the Nevada side, where it does not on the California side. It brings up title issues and a lot of legalities that we need to ensure for our clients. So that, along with environmental issues, and then just geographically knowing things around the lake. I grew up boating, and there's places on the lake that are much more protected from the wind and the waves. So, we'll often show clients homes in Crystal Bay that are protected from the prevailing southwesterly breeze, and you can get out of the elements, versus Incline Village, where you get large rollers and waves, and you really want to have a lift on your pier. So there's all these really neat nuances that make it fun for me.
Yeah, I don't know, fun. I think you were in a crawl space for 3 weeks.
Yeah,
clients.
It wasn't fun at the time, but it was a necessary thing, and I don't think that we could have really remediated the problem unless we were actually down there. I did my final walkthrough. I like to call it a crawl through. The buyer and his stepsons did a crawl through of the crawl space with a newly installed 17,000 square foot vapor barrier that was bright white and
wow,
clean, and a huge contrast from the way it had been when we first went down there in the spring. So it all worked out, and I just feel, details like that, you just have to get things done.
So in coming to this business, you came, like, what has been your biggest aha And what do you love most about this business? Pick which one you want to answer first.
Oh, I think my biggest aha is I had expectations for myself that to be a top agent, I had to have a certain persona, and I had to, you know, I had to do certain things that other agents did. And I've just realized that it's such a personal experience for every buyer, kind of like you said. And my success has just been relating to people one-on-one as individuals, and not really having to put myself out there in front of a huge audience, or do a lot of things outside my comfort level. I really feel like I work best on a one-on-one basis, and have been lucky enough to be in the right place where that works for me, and I can focus on one sale at a time. And I may only do 10 to 12 sales a year, but if they're significant ones, and I've put in a lot of work and have a lot of support from my brokers and marketing team and all of that, I can be successful in my business on that scale without taking it to a different level.
There's this assumption that real estate agents are like $1 million real estate agent and big
Right.
egos and fancy outfits and so forth and so on. And then there are people who just love real estate, and they are more introverted, and they get into this business. And I've met those people, and I find oftentimes they go, just kidding. What is your advice to those people, or anybody who wants to be in this business who isn't the stereotype or might think they have to be the stereotype?
Yeah, truly for me, it was just to focus on my strong points and be authentic. And I know also some wonderful agents who do a lot of good for their community and work through a lot of social events, and are very involved in that way. And they love having, a broad kind of sphere of exposure. And they're also brilliant at what they do and do very good for their clients. So that stereotype, I wouldn't knock it either. It's just that people have different comfort levels and doing what they do. But I really just think focus on the set of skills, what you can bring to your buyers and what you can bring to your clients. And there's a niche out there. It's just fortunate that we're in a market, many of us now, where first-time home buyers are just coming out of the woodwork. People are moving, upgrading.
Yeah.
It's a very good market to be a realtor in.
So when I listen to you, because I know your level of success, and you really don't tout yourself and what you've done and how good you are and how successful you are, but it's not a matter of undermining yourself. It's a matter of just being humble. What is that sounds like it's something that it's important to you, or what does that mean to you?
Those are my roots. I grew up in, a small coastal village in New England. And my first love, my focus was sailing. And I raced little boats all the way up through college, and was really competitive with my brother and kind of our group of friends. And that's always been a big deal for me, just being out on the water and being on boats and sailing and doing all that. I really don't have huge, high aspirations in life, other than, I've always just wanted to be able to spend my time out on the water and doing what I love. And that's also extended now to skiing. We have a big skiing family here, and my daughter and husband are much better skiers than I am, but it's a wonderful combination for summer and winter. So I'm just blessed that I can live and be in a place where I can enjoy what I like to do and help other people. And it's kind of as simple as that. I don't have high aspirations to be anybody other than I am right now.
And it's almost like you're so in line with who you are and your values that the success just unfolds.
I guess so. And we talk about success though, but it's so measured personally. I don't think it's a price point of sales. I just happen to be in a market where our price tags are 16 to 38 million, for citing a couple of sales I've done. But I grew up in this little New England.
You did just break a record. You did break a record, and you've broken a few. I mean, that's just true. Yeah.
It's true, but it's, I think we should all just take our successes with, just a measure of being humble. We're there to help other people and purchase their homes and live their dreams. So it's kind of a process too of helping guide people in the right direction. And it's not about our success. It's really just about building trust with clients and helping them achieve their goals and having long-term relationships. So in another 10 or 15 years, they may end up selling the property and going somewhere else, and it'll be nice to be able to work with them down the road.
And when you say that, here's what I hear. If there's any purpose we have in this life, it's to help one another.
That's true. And I think we accomplish our own goals that way too. So I don't really, I'm not sure what to say. I don't think there's much more out there to achieve. If you live in a place you love and you have a great group of friends or family and are able to do the things you do, that was kind of our goal. That's kind of all of our goals starting out as young professionals. And it does feel a little bit strange to be on the other side of the, kind of aging, the other side of the horizon.
What I love about it is so many people set out for a goal, like a tangible outside of myself goal. Your goal is, these are my values. This is who I am. This is what's important. And by living by that, it aligns you with what some of the things happen to be incredibly, unusually successful outcomes. Now, that doesn't mean that's what success necessarily is, but it's interesting how other people would aspire to attain the outside goals that you have attained naturally by aligning with your values. And yet the harder they try, the more they're pulled away from their values because their focus is outside of their heart and who they are. And it's focused on something outside of them, when really what's outside of you is really to align with your values in the first place, if you're aware.
It's easy. Yeah, it's easy to get sidetracked and get caught up with all of the ancillary, opportunities and wining and dining and travel and all of these kind of fun things that we do get to do as part of getting to know each other and networking. But the truth of the matter is, I did have financial goals when I got into this, and it's only been in the last 5 years where I've realized what this opportunity, I did a little bit see it coming and see things changing rapidly in the market. So I took advantage of it. I jumped in it and I just worked really hard. But I did have goals, and in my mind, I've surpassed what I thought I might do, which is great, but there's no reason to stop now, right? We just keep going, and it's working, and we have a nice balance in life. And unfortunately, we've all had to learn this the hard way by taking a step back and not traveling so much anymore and meeting face to face and doing all these things. But I think it's given everybody a little bit more time to have balance and take a walk outside instead of being in an office meeting.
Think about what's really important. The walks, for me, I started taking walks every morning with my husband because we could. Now we still do that. We just do it at 4:30. But we learned we enjoyed it so much that we prioritized it, and it's made our quality of life so much better because we had to slow down and figure out what was important.
Oh, it's true.
Last 3 questions. This is the quote final 3, and you can answer these as quickly or slowly. So I think you need to be on. You've got about 15 minutes or 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah. No, I should be. I'm good. I'm waiting for a call, so that I'm fine.
Okay, perfect. Okay, final 3. Number 1. What has been your best resource for your success? And in your case, success aligning with your values, getting where you are today, being who you're meant to be. What has been your best resource for that?
I think there's 2 pieces to it. One is success in all of the knowledge I've gained, and I'm constantly learning from every transaction. But a lot of this knowledge is really in the field and, boots on the ground. I just learned something very important from our fire and sprinkler inspector today, about, new glycol levels that are available for anti-freezing in properties. So everything from these little technical aspects that we pick up in important details here too. Yeah. That's honestly, for me, these boots on the ground things are the most important, bringing all of this knowledge together to be able to speak intelligently about it and help buyers make decisions. And then the other side of the coin is truly Sotheby's having a model for us and really giving us all of the tools and things that we need to be able to be great agents. I don't have to reinvent the wheel for my marketing and to be able to find buyers and sellers anymore. So those two components for me have just meshed together perfectly to let me bring my skills to people that need them.
So knowledge from being in it, you're in the field knowledge and the Sotheby's tools, resources, and network.
Yeah, and I have been with a few companies, and there are wonderful agents all over and great brokers, and you and I have talked about it a little bit, but I feel there are so few brokers that take the level of care that Sotheby's does and the consistency throughout all of our markets and top agents, that I have the same comfort level picking up the phone and calling, Nikki Field in Manhattan, or Ty Stockton in Aspen, and understanding that they'll treat my clients and I'll treat their clients just as they would. We just have this, understanding that there's a very high threshold and we've set a very high bar for talent and integrity with a company that I've really aligned with.
Integrity, it's a big one. Second question.
Mm-hmm.
Book. Is there a book that you would say we've just got to read it, it'll change your life, or it has changed your life?
Oh, I wish I had free time to read more.
I live in Atlanta. We drive everywhere. Audible's the best.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I've been doing a lot less driving lately. Boy, I'd have to think back. Let's skip that question. Let's go to the next one.
So last question. If there's one thing that you would hope that we remember if we're going to forget everything else from this interview, what would it be?
Oh, I would love for people to have an opportunity to explore other markets. And I think that's been fun for me, is that Tahoe is not always on the radar for a lot of people, especially coming from the East Coast, where I grew up in Connecticut and spent time in Maine. So I think it's fun for me to be able to have a new opportunity for buyers exploring for other regions and being able to introduce them to winter without New England, 30-degree gray sky days for weeks on end, but you can actually get out and ski with bluebird conditions and enjoy winter again.
It's a beautiful place to go.
It's a couple years natural environment.
Yeah. Awesome. So everybody explore Lake Tahoe, especially in Nevada, and call Lexi because she's the best.
Yeah.
And probably the most humble top agent. Not just only she's a top agent in the country, but one of the most humble about such being so amazing. So thank you for being on the show.
Maybe it's just because we're all so exhausted from this last summer. We're all just trying to catch our breath.
Exactly. But what a blessing, right? I mean, what a gift.
It is.
Again.
Thanks, Jere. It's great to catch up with you. And yeah.